so it's a bit hastily planned, but I did plan for this to happen, so we'll just might as well roll with it. This is a long overdue video I've been wanting to post for like ages now, so here we are today. But this time I have the perfect two cars to be, you know, the star cars or the future cars. These represent the modern tuning age. This video will be going exclusively over what both of these cars have done in the past, and show you what the history of tuning has become. Okay, for starters, who the heck tunes Land Cruisers? Thinking, yeah, this whole fucking boat, who needs it? Well, towing and all sorts of competitive shit is involved, so we're just gonna skip over the reasons why. So, these two cars. This is a completely dead stock HDJ101, which means it's got a standard GTA 2359 VNT turbocharger. This one is not stock by any means necessary. This is the perfect benchline of what a stock car should do and what this one is doing. And this isn't just an average tuned Honda with, you know, with lots of horsepower. This has an 8-speed automatic paired behind it, so this thing is an absolute rocket ship. We'll get into the details of what these two cars are like, but let me put it to you this way. This is probably the fastest car I've ever ridden. Okay, this, I think I'm right in saying, is probably the most powerful 1HD powered car within Southeast Asia. Well, at least in Malaysia, it's easily the one that dwarfs everybody. This is it started life as a 2006 HDJ101K built in 2006, and the owner has gone to town on this particular engine. This car now sports a Gturbo G400 Ti, and it's running plus 70 injectors as well as a whole host of other tricks and mods to make this car go absolutely bananas. The intercooler is I don't know if it's a PDI one or it's another brand, name brand one, because it's definitely not using the factory intercooler. Excuse the GD rumble. And this car is making, well, based on what we put the 8-speed behind, it's making about 1100 newton meters of torque, and horsepower wise, about 430 to about 450 horsepower is a pretty good guess, which is easily one of the most powerful cars I've ever driven. The torque this thing shoves through the back of you is insane. It's absolutely the most fun thing I've ever had. I'll try and throw up some videos and how it's done, but this thing is mad. Okay, this car is also a perfect sort of segue into tuning Land Cruisers. Now, tuning Land Cruisers isn't exactly a new thing that people suddenly discovered in the mid 2010s. No, they've been tuning these things since I think the very start of them. Because they started out quite conservatively tuned, and they're quite slow. Naturally, people want more, and here we are today in the tuning world. Well, the tuning story starts back in the 1980s with a bunch of lads playing with the predecessor to this particular engine, the 12HT, well, engine series. People have put on big turbos, injectors, nozzles, all sorts of stuff back in the day to really spice the old HJ61s they were attached to, which they were no slouch. They were one of the first direct injection turbo drive cars you could get at the time.
Direct injection makes it the most powerful vehicle in its class. The power, the performance, and the handling that puts you in control.
Direct injection turbo?
So,
what a charge!
After that came the 1HD series of engines. Now these really took off during the 80 series when they were introduced with a 1HDT, which is a 12-valve single overhead cam motor, and the 24-valve, the subsequent generation 80 series, which is effectively the same base, but the head just has more valve train underneath. So that sparked a tuning arms race back in the day. What I mean by that is during the period of when the 80 series was introduced, Japan was experiencing quite a fluctuation of monies. So a lot of its citizens and a lot of the owners of these vehicles got quite well off, so they decided to spend it where it counts, putting lots of boost through one of these. Now, it started off fairly docile, I would say. It started with, the simple intercooler upgrades, fuel pump a bit of like mechanical fuel pump tuning, and a little bit of messing around with the injectors and all that, and at the last step you'll put the turbocharger through it. That netted you like from the stock 163 on the HDT and the later 1HD-FTE with 168 horsepower. They netted around 180, 200 horsepower, which is pretty decent because this is what these made from the factory with electronic fuel injection as well as all sorts of trickery like VNT turbos and all that. Then, of course, they didn't stop there. They went to 250. Now, this is aided by a few companies, including BAG/Blitz, yes, the people who make the R348 Blitz, as well as KOC, which is Kyoto Off-Road Center. They are true OGs of the scene, as well as KRD, KRD, I'm not too sure what their name is, as well as a bunch of guys can't realize in Hokkaido. Those guys are nuts as well. They have. I would like to do a dedicated story on their 12 HD HJ61, but anyway, we're back. We're going off topic here. So, anyways, on the HDT side, these four companies during the mad times of Japan decided, you know what? Let's see what these big-bodied LCs can do. So they did, and they pushed the cars to make. Okay, it started with 200. Then it went to 220 with the introduction of for the time, the CT26S by KOC or the BAG CT26S, which is almost similar. It's effectively a CT26 housing with TO4 internals. I think it's like similar to what UFI will be using, like a 16G or 16 or an 18G. Anyways. Then power jumped into the CT26R. The CT26R is a slightly bigger turbo by KOC as well as its BAG counterpart. Now that went up to around 250. Now if you wanted more puff, you went to the CT26RX, which is a turbo I'm trying to find right now because of the old school charm. And those pushed it to about 260, 270 odd horsepower, which is pretty moving for a 1HD-FTE series of a 4-speed automatic back in 1995 or something to that nature. Okay, you would think they would stop at 250 because that's where people start to have issues with the A442 hydro over electronic automatic gearbox. Ooh, no, you don't know Japanese people. They persevered. So that meant they would go upgrade the torque converters on the A442s as well as the clutches inside the A442, which is kind of similar to how a lot of people modify, let's say wholesale, would upgrade a A442 or an A440F with more clutches, bands, all that fun stuff. Okay, so that naturally progressed into extracting more power. Now, the CT26RX was just about pushing its limits to about, the thing was good for around 280 to about 300 horsepower on a mechanical pump. So when they needed more, they had to go with two turbos. Now, twin turbo 1HD sounds amazing, like the concept of it as well as the execution. I hope I can find the old TDO 617Gs they used to use back in the day. It's very much like the Turbo 1Gs they used to go batshit all over back in the day during the Trust-Ready era when they were using like MA60s and MA70 Supras. Now in terms of shooting a 1HD for mechanical injection, there's a lot more choices to be had. Well, at the time, they're not just custom turbos, custom intercoolers, custom injectors, like this is before. Back in the day, KOC, this tiny little company that was quite niche in Osaka, managed to build a custom 24 valve grind camshaft for one of these. That is to me the holy grail of what I want in one of these cars, because A, it's unobtainium, and 2, it fixes something what these don't have. Like the stock camshaft is good for like idle and all that, but it's just missing that, how should we put it, that grumble. It allows you need that higher lift for that higher RPM. This thing is probably maxed out at 4,000 RPM. If you give it any more, I think it'd be like a slippery slope, how we should put it. Because if you rev it at around 5,000 RPM, it just feels like the car's kind of like falling off in the torque table. Whereas if you rev it to exactly 4,000 RPM, it's safe. But you just get that feeling of it's there, but you know you could do better. Yeah, it's exactly the story of this particular car. Anyways, okay, so with that slight brief introduction out of the way, let's move on to the racing stuff. Okay, of course, they started out pretty slow. I think these things crossed the quarter mile, well, in the A series, around 17 or 18 seconds. They're pretty 18 or 20 seconds. They're quite sluggish. They're like just a few seconds off the 30-second drag strip cutoff time they would use. Let's just say they weren't exactly, brisk cars. That when they started to tune these things, the time started to tumble very quickly. So I have with me, you will see cutouts, a old school Option 4 magazine. Now this is a relatively obscure magazine that most people who are into these sort of four-wheel drives, like if you're like an OG head at the time, you will know what OPT4 is. It's effectively like it's a four-wheel drive version of Option magazine, like the Option magazine you would see with Yatabe speed trials and all sorts of crazy nonsense they used to pull back in the day before stuff like regulations killed it off. Anywho, when they did the spin-off for Option 4, they decided to cover all the sort of crazy four-wheel drives you would expect Japan of the 1990s to have built. I'm talking about, 320 horsepower 1HD-FTE 80 series being used as daily drivers. No prendo. Cars like, say, a twin turbo 1FZ. Yes, turbo 1FZs have been popular since the 1990s. The guys in Australia and the guys in Dubai didn't really popularize it, but they certainly brought it so much more forward in the development cycle. It's become their native platform, which kudos to them. There's also, anyway, off topic, there's guys with 1HD-T, 1HD or 12 HTs. There's one particular 12 HT I would like to cover. This particular HJ61 on the outside just looks like a period correct 1988, 89 HJ61 high top with pretty cool decal and factory visors and just a sneaky headlight dump. What you don't see is how much power it makes. It makes about 365 horsepower. This is based on an old dyno Japan they used at the time. I don't know if it's a Dynapack or I'm not here to make results, but it's definitely one of the more powerful 12 HT cars ever. I mean, there's the GNL, or I forgot what the guy's Cutler Diesel or something in Australia has made a more powerful 2H, which has gone 14s in the quarter, which is pretty insane for a old HJ60 series body with an old direct injection engine. I think that was even a 2H with an indirect injection engine. Anyway, we're going off top with all the most popular cars at the time were 1HD-Ts and 1HD-FTs. They didn't just take them, not just one-trick ponies at the track. No. They even took them to Tsukuba Raceway. Now, this is where I have to pull out the iconic banana yellow 80 series that's run by a team called, I think it's KRD. Yeah, it is KRD, which uses a BAG/Blitz turbocharger. These guys,
「 and the KOC sponsored 80 series wide body,
80 series wide body, are the two main guys who are into like, you know, track racing, like Tsukuba and it's at I'm not too sure who the track is, I'll put the picture, but these guys were serious about their laps at Tsukuba. I think they did 1 minute and 14s, I think, which, for context, if you break into the 59-second barrier, you drive an R55 Nismo. 1 minute 5, 1 minute 10s is what a stock like Mitsubishi Evo 5 would do Tsukuba in, which is pretty insane because you're effectively looking at it where this is a giant elephant on stilts. The way how they managed to do that is beyond what most people would be willing to do. I'm willing to wager that some of these guys are not right in the head, but you know, I'd love them for that. Anyways, they not only just tuned them for the track, they also use them for towing. Yes, Japan does have them for towing. Now, let's just, I'm not going to focus just on the Japanese side. Let's go to the Australian counterparts. Now, Australia has a few brands like Safari. Yes, the same people who make Safari intercoolers and RMAX ECUs are the same people also responsible for Safari turbo kits for 2Hs, 1HZs, Toyota 2Ls, 3Ls, and 5Ls, as well as a few 1HD-T/1HD-FTs. You can always tell an original Safari one just by this, like the very 1990s-esque Safari intercooled crossover pipe you'll get on a HDT or an FT. The other major people are of course the Whistling Suit guys, which is the normal stuff, and then you have guys like UFI Fuel Injection, as well as Gturbo. Now you've probably seen Gturbo's HDJ79 race truck, which is making about 430 horsepower and god loads of torque, very similar to what this particular engine is running. And that is their demo car, and they've done all sorts of crazy stuff with it. And not just with 1HDs, but they've also been able to cover the 1BDs, which is its successor, which is a really good engine as well, just like as reliable as these. Anywho, they've been managed to make like 900 Nm daily drivers or 1200 Nm daily drivers, like right on the box. Like you would think your 200 series or 100 series would be like, you know, docile. No one would bat an eye if you parked it at a shopping lot. When you come out of that shopping lot, this thing will dust Audi SQ7 TDIs with pretty good ease, because this thing makes so much pound. Now, what possesses a man to build a 430 horsepower 1HD FTE with enough power to blitz all four tires if need be? Well, I think the only answer is just insanity. Let's hear what this thing has to make. Sounds factory. I don't like factory, but definitely doesn't go as factory. This thing is mad. It's got power shifters, it's got cruise control, it's got a A90 style, A90 shifter in the car as per demand, and this thing is an absolute weapon to drive on the road. Like, this thing is like, if Japanese people could see what this is nowadays, they would be jaw dropped, because this is just everything turned up to 11. This thing is probably too much for the road for like an average road user. I'm gonna turn it off because this thing is making a lot of noise. There's low. Turn it on. And it works like factory. I forgot to mention this car is running a Unichip Q4, so not the latest Unichip X, but it's still a very effective product because this thing absolutely goes. I'll put some snapshots of the car soon. But as you can see, this car is, I mean, if I close the door and if it has a pretty dark tint, you would not think this car is a you know, a car capable of absolutely demolishing Audi SQ7s for fun. You just see, oh, it's just got paddle shifters and a funky little shifter. Other than that, if you were to step out of this car and you didn't know much about Land Cruisers, you would think, stock, everything except for this and this. This is the only giveaway of what this car is really about. Okay, first I gotta apologize because my mic has gone flat on the battery, so this one it will be completely off key. Anywho, what's special between these two cars is that both are running an 8-speed automatic. Well, formally, I should say. This one on my left was my test car. This is my actual car. So this one did all the hard work of doing test kilometers and all that with an 8-speed. Now you would think jumping from a 5 to an 8 would be substantial, but it wouldn't be like life-changing. Well, let me put it to you this way: when the 8-speed, when I went back to the 5-speed as a special thing for this particular car, I miss it dearly. The gear ratios are just so much nicer than what I could muster in the 5-speed. Like the 5-speed is nice, but the spread of ratios you get, especially from first to second to third, and subsequently going to fourth, is miles better in the 8-speed. Not to mention the amount of torque the 8-speed can handle. A750s are known to only handle about 700 to 750 Newton meters of torque when they're built, or around 650 if you're pushing a stock one. This is definitely not enough for this particular car, so he went to town on this particular one. So this is a car to watch out, and let's just say that this car has everything we can option for one of these cars. You have a Tiptronic mode, which means that you have auto, sports auto, as well as manual mode, as well as paddle shifters, as well as cruise control. This thing works almost exactly as factory. It's just that the transmission behind it is now significantly more suitable to this particular car's application. Now, this car is basically the most bastard car I've ever seen. I wish I had a draggy with me to film this car's 0 to 100 km an hour from, like, 20-30%, which is like, takeoff speed for this car. But let me put it, but this car easily dwarfs this car in terms of its performance. Now, with so many gears stacked on top of each other, it's become like one of the best, one of the most bitchin' cars to drive. I love this thing. I might build a second one, you follow up to this car soon, but this car currently takes the cake. This thing is magical by comparison. Now, why not show both of these cars on screen? Well, for owner's discretion, he wants his car to be a sleeper. I don't know how do you describe a sleeper that weighs 200 bit tons, but I suspect he's probably now the SQ7 TDR or Bentley Bentayga diesel fan. Anywho, what I will show you in the process is, of course, what this car can do. I'll cut to some clips of what this car, with me filming on my cell phone, will do. I wish there was enough time for me to stick a GoPro or like stick something in the dash for when you guys can see the odometer climb, but I think some clips I put together should do the job. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I mean, this is a bit hastily put together, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll try and throw up a few snapshots of older video, of older skits I filmed. I'll try and wrap it up in a nice bow.